Welcome everybody. Thanks so much for joining. This is the second edition of Crypto Talk, which is an initiative that Nicola and I initially started, where we said, hey, there's so much happening in crypto. The landscape is changing so fast. And we all like drinks, we all like food, we all like to talk about it. So why don't do that every couple of months to get together and talk about it. And crypto, DeFi, Web3 is definitely fascinating. I mean, I myself, I'm hooked since 2016 on the topic, and it wouldn't let me go since. And and thanks to Gen 2 as well. At this stage, we're here in the Gen 2 office, as everybody knows. Thanks to the team, thanks to Pavel, Mario, Nicola, Jaros, Jacqueline, who else is here? Legal also, Kurt in the front row, love to see that, Sylvia. Thanks so much for making this possible. And yeah, before we go to the panel discussion, I want to take the chance to just briefly update you also on Gen 2 and Gen 2 Digital. There has been some great achievements from our side that I'm happy to share. And I also want to repeat our mission statement. So we are bridging all assets in all sectors. It is about building bridges. We look at ourselves as the bridge builder. And there's so many amazing projects and investment opportunities out there. And there's great investors. And they have quite some trouble still finding each other or connecting in the right way that it works for everybody involved. And that's really our mission. We do this through securitization, which is a very, very powerful tool, very old school, but yet very powerful ever since Gen 2, as we started this second generation of securitization, where we democratized financial products, really. And as you know, we have Gen 2 Digital, which is the brand all about crypto. That's the company I'm running. And then we have Gen 2, which is more about private markets and traditional finance, where we structure bankable AMCs and the ones that you're more familiar maybe. And then we have Asset Rush, which is our ecosystem, as I like to call it, or investor network, where it's also an indirect distribution channel and a chance for our partners and clients to go on stage. The next event is May 23rd here in Kaufleuten at in the Kaufleuten. And we give each of our partners 5 minutes to pitch their project. And that has been working really well, and it's great fun putting it on. Then the Gen 2 Digital mission, as this is a crypto event, I mean, it's all about giving crypto access to traditional capital markets, which the two don't always work so nicely together, but we wrap crypto in a way, shape, or form that traditional asset managers or banks can easily deal with it, and that's really the mission statement. And I just said that, so we give asset managers the chance to structure any crypto portfolio into a bankable format, and then banks, for their end investors, ultimately book it into their bank depots. And that's the interesting part here. And the AMC, the actively managed certificate, is the most commonly used structure that we use. It's fund-like in its economic outcome, but way more flexible and cheaper and faster to set up. That's why it's so powerful. And it has also a clear advantage if you look at traditional or offshore funds, which are often used in the crypto world. They typically are in the Caymans or in the Bahamas or wherever. And if you look into how the subscription mechanism works getting into one of these funds, it's still a wire transfer most of the times. And the wire transfer is something that most asset managers have a problem with because of the asset outflow. Because once you do the wire, the money is gone out of your accounts. And that's a problem for many. And in our solution, or in the AMC, you have a bankable security, an ISIN code that you can subscribe to via your house bank, and then the money still stays in your bank account. And that's really, really cool and neat and gives a lot of people comfort. And we launched a total of 130 crypto-denominated products in the last 5 years, ever since we started. And we have today 450 million in assets total across these products on the crypto side. Then here's some more facts and figures about our evolution. Like I said, we did 130 crypto-denominated products. And 439 actually on private equity and private market transactions. So you still see that Gen2 Digital, of course, is rather small compared to Gen2, where we securitize private markets, but also public markets, so bankable underlyings like stocks and bonds. And the total assets today, we started in 2018, as you know. In the first 2 years, we had 700 million roughly. Then we had, ever since COVID, actually, we had a huge inflow. And now today we are at 2.7 billion. So we are quite proud of that, and thanks to every one of you. I mean, we have also some of our clients here and partners here. Thanks to all of you, really. And yeah, now we're getting to the topic of the panel today, which is DeFi versus CeFi. So centralized finance or decentralized finance versus centralized finance, which is quite a funny title because the promise of both are the same. It's about transactions and it's about doing that in a safe and secure way. And there's two very different approaches, and that's what we're gonna discuss. And DeFi, I mean, I think everybody or who in here has deployed funds into a DeFi protocol? Okay, not too bad, not too bad. About 1/3 of the people, I would say. So yeah, DeFi has no central authority. It's completely decentralized, which means it's a protocol that has no authority, so to speak. It also has no intermediaries. It's just code. It's available to everyone, which is in general the cool thing about crypto. It's very inclusive. What's not so cool about it is the lack of regulatory oversight, which we see right now, especially. And I checked yesterday, the total value locked in DeFi protocols and pools and liquidity pools is about 50 billion. You know, it used to be almost $250 billion. We're down to 50 billion, just to put it in perspective. And on the finance or on the traditional centralized finance world, I mean, it's finance as we know it today, but also counterparties like Coinbase, Kraken. These are crypto exchanges that are run on the same principles like traditional finances run. So TradFi and CeFi are similar. I would say CeFi is a subset of TradFi, traditional finance. And yes, it's very centralized. There's many intermediaries. There's high cost resulting of that, and there's also lack of innovation through that. It's not inclusive, and as a result, we have today roughly 1.8 billion adults that are unbanked, and if you ask me, that's not the way forward. And yeah, that being said, I would like to kick off the panel discussion. We will talk a lot about risks and risks when it comes to DeFi and crypto overall. And the goal of the session today is to not just openly discuss about this, but also to give you talking points and insights that you can then share with your colleagues, clients, partners, because to me, in my mind, the most important thing everybody should do when you're interested in crypto is educate yourself and get a grip on the topic. That's really the best you can do. And yeah, that being said, I will welcome our first panelist to the stage, Gregory Mall. He has been with SEBA Bank, I think, from the very, very, very beginning. Is that correct?
Hi.
Welcome. Thanks for joining. And yes,
almost
the beginning. So yeah, please feel free to introduce yourself and the project.
Thank you very much. Like as Lucas just mentioned, my name is Gregory Moll. I'm the head of investment solutions at SEBA Bank. I think most of you are probably familiar with SEBA Bank. For those of you who are not, we were one of the first institutions worldwide who has received a full-fledged banking license by the Swiss regulator, and with a clear focus on digital assets and cryptocurrencies. Our main value proposition is custody, trading, tokenization to a lesser degree, as well as lending on crypto assets. And within that ecosystem, we also have the investment solutions department, which essentially is similar to what Gen2 is doing, but using Gen2 as a partner and leveraging on those capabilities, basically generating or enabling access to crypto in an institutional way, right? And this is what we are doing in forms of ETP, so really exchange-listed public distribution products, as well as AMCs, where we are more of a white labeling partner with Gen2, where we, for example, act as a one-stop shop solution where the client can just come and say like, hey guys, I want an SPV set up, I want a calculation agent, I want a paying agent, I want the custody, I want the trading, everything in-house. So yeah, that's pretty much what we do here. Yeah.
Super, thanks. Thanks for sharing. And then next one up is Ryan Pyle. You may know him from Discovery Channel or also from the Guinness World Records book. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Ooh.
Microphone is a bit too close. Yeah.
Yes, we're getting there. Thank
Perfect.
you.
Yeah, please also introduce yourself and what are you up to?
Yeah, so I'm Ryan Pyle. Lived in China for 18 years, worked for the New York Times for 10 of them, made some television shows traveling around the world. My crypto journey started in 2015, mining, and I'm the founding partner of Main Investment, which is a digital asset management firm in Zug. So now I manage clients, helping them get exposure to digital assets in a safe way, hopefully. It's been a tough couple months, but we're getting back into it, hopefully.
Superb. Thanks for joining. And then last but not least, we have Christoph Gogol. Please join me on stage. He's a blockchain entrepreneur and also a researcher on the topic in DeFi, especially. I think you're also doing your PhD, if I'm not mistaken, on the topic. And yeah, welcome and please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Lucas. It's a pleasure to be with you. Yes, I'm a tech entrepreneur that is working on different DeFi projects. I mean, among others, we are working on a infrastructure layer for discretionary mandates when your clients are doing crypto wallet self-custody. And I like DeFi so much that I decided to start even PhD in this area to understand really deeply what's happening. I'm also very happy to see here all friends that I remember from the very old days, like 10 years ago, when I co-founded WealthArc, one of the PMS solutions for wealth managers.
Super. Well, now we're complete. I think now we can get started. And I will throw out the first question to you, Ryan, which reads as follows. As an independent asset manager, what are your thoughts and the risks associated to DeFi and digital assets as a whole?
It changes from every 3 months, I think. It just depends on where we are in a market cycle. So in 2021, there wasn't a lot of fear. 2022, there was a ton of fear, whether it's stable coins, whether it's custody. Obviously, the world changed on November the 11th when FTX collapsed, and now custody is at the forefront of every conversation dealing with clients. And speaking as an asset manager specifically, I'm not a hedge fund. I don't take a lot of high-risk investments over a 5 to 7 year time horizon. I'm managing client assets, trying to generate them a yield on a quarterly or annually basis that they can live off of, and safety and security is paramount. And not to plug Gen2, but the AMC with the counterparty risk mitigation is definitely an interesting topic around safety and security, making sure that the clients hold the assets in their accounts and things like that. So the AMC structure really helps the conversation around crypto be a little bit more palatable to long-term investors for sure. But yeah, it's terrifying on a daily basis when you think about custody and stable coins potentially collapsing. Yeah.
Indeed. Then the next question goes to you, Christoph. How do you see the investment potential in DeFi? First part of the question, and then secondly, what are your thoughts of investment products today available in DeFi?
So here I think I might surprise a lot of you, because for me, digital assets and the crypto, it's not about speculation, about the value of a token. DeFi is something like a new financial system with using blockchain as a settlement layer. And that financial system is actually being merged slowly with the traditional financial system. And it's driven by the tokenization of commodities, tokenization of bonds, other financial instruments. And actually, when we have those tokenized assets, and it's going to be trillions of dollars in the future, we need those DeFi protocols on the blockchain to manage them. It can be decentralized exchanges, interest rate protocols, and then actually we need some market makers. Like we have market makers in traditional finance, we also need those market makers in DeFi. In DeFi, sometimes they call themselves yield farmers. And I really like, and I'm a big fan of all of the financial products that are actually incorporate those market making strategies from DeFi into their offering. And then, using different financial instruments, you can, try to hedge that cryptocurrency volatility risk.
Very good. Thanks for sharing. Then over to you, Gregory. So as the head of investment solutions at CeFi Bank, so how do you see the perspective and the issue of trust that we have in the market right now, and how would you describe trustworthy custody?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the whole FTX debacle obviously has put trust back at the forefront of the discussion, as Ryan also mentioned earlier. I think for too long, kind of security has been compromised to have more convenient access and easier access. And now the whole discussion has completely shifted, right? I think there was really a pre-FTX world and a post-FTX world, and that has massively helped our business case because, custody is essentially at the core of our offering and essentially also the raison d'être for CeFi Bank, right? Now, I think that the custody is the core. I think there is a lot of I think there's a lot of how can I say a lot of importance being placed on being the most secure solution out there, right? So we have a lot of audits going on, not only with respect to the custody solution itself, which is an in-house built product for the cold custody solution, but also for the whole processes around it, because that's a big thing in crypto, right? Everybody who has dealt with private keys before knows that, right? So we have a lot of processes that go around that, that essentially prevent our operations team from colluding, from stealing coins, all of that. All of that needs to be audited, needs to be thought of. We have ISAE reports. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with those. These are similar to SOC reports that basically confirm that the custody solution is institutional grade, and that is really a big part of our pitch.
Superb. And then I will ask Christoph, as the DeFi expert here on stage, how do you think DeFi can address the issue of trust and custody?
Such a difficult question. It's a little ideological, because in traditional finance, we are trusting in the institutions. We trust in FINMA and the regulations. Whereas in DeFi, we need to trust cryptography. And we need to trust that everything is being stored securely on blockchain. But when you look at the biggest blockchain, like Ethereum, it's maintained by 500,000 of servers in 80 countries. Every server is having a copy of all of the data. So it really sounds trustworthy. There are some questions about the regulations, but here, some big banks, especially those American ones, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, they run some pilots. They tested those DeFi protocols for exchanging tokens, for borrowing, lending, and the outcome was that actually everything is legal, compliant with the law. It was in Singapore, and really legit. Here in Switzerland, I'm a big fan. I was telling it to Lucas of the AMC. They are enabling because it's simply empowering asset managers to really manage the tokens on a blockchain using a real wallet, institutional wallets. At the same time, wrap it into an investment product that the clients in traditional banks can simply use it. And on the technical side, this is really, really cool. I'm a really big fan of that. I'm so happy to see some of those AMC managers here.
Well, thank you so much for that. That's very kind words of you.
I'm not paid for that.
No, but I think that ties exactly into that. Yeah, again, the mission statement. We want to make everything accessible and investable, bankable, and however we can do that. And yeah, as our legal team is also represented here, that caused a lot of sweat and tears over the days. But I think ultimately we have quite a solid solution to the problems that you addressed. Now over to you, Ryan. You mentioned earlier of all the risks associated for investing in digital assets overall. So can you elaborate maybe on the risks as an asset manager, and how do you mitigate them as far as you can from your side?
I mean, being in Switzerland is probably one of the best ways to mitigate those risks, just because the regulation here is quite strict, and you do have to jump through a lot of hoops and do things in the right way. But you have to understand, in Switzerland, we're living in a bubble. You know, the majority of the digital asset ecosystem does not exist in Switzerland. It exists in the Cayman Islands. It used to exist in the Bahamas, South Korea, Hong Kong, Singapore. There's still a lot of activity in China, although I think Justin's son just got arrested in Hong Kong last week, so that's awesome for Huobi. But like, you know, in Switzerland, we have a nice little ecosystem that we're trying to build here, and I think it's super helpful, but the rest of the world is a complete mess in the crypto space, and every other country on earth is just trying to catch up, or not even try at all to get to how Switzerland has defined these assets and made them bankable through institutions like SEBA and through creating products like what you guys are doing. But it's still terrifying out there, you know, managing third-party money, and where do you put it? How do you manage it? What kind of risk do you allocate? It's something that, you know, keeps me awake all night. And of course, last year was the worst year of investing since, I think, the Great Depression. I think that was the statistic that came out 2022. And I mean, in the crypto space, we had UST Luna in May collapse. We had Three Arrows Capital in June. We had Celsius in July, and then we had the FTX in November. So I didn't sleep a lot last year. It was terrible. And every day I'm just wondering what bad actor is going to take the ecosystem down tomorrow. Because it doesn't matter whether you're at SEBA Bank or you have an AMC with Gen 2. If some crazy guy in South Korea with 5 million Twitter followers who has a coin that's about to dump takes the market down 30% in one day, which is completely possible, you have to be kind of ready for that in some way, shape, or form. And then if you want to go market neutral on a daily basis or on a weekly basis into a stable coin, it's like, well, which stable coin? UST? No, that collapsed last year completely. USDT? They haven't passed an audit and they're all over the place. USDC? Maybe. But stablecoin risk is one of our biggest risks just because of how we trade and things like that. So trying to manage all of these risks all the time is intense. Totally. I need your help, actually. We should team up for something more.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I mean, if you guys have anything to add to that.
Yeah,
please.
I think, exchange risk is also a very big topic, right? Not only since FTX. Now it's actually, the situation is almost scarier because like the majority of the flow is going over Binance, right? Especially if you have a quantitative driven investment strategy, you're almost forced to trade there, right? And Binance is still, you know, the kind of elephant in the room. Nobody knows exactly what's going on there. This is a little bit of a black box, multi-jurisdiction setup, you know, not ideal from several angles.
I think actually Huobi, Binance, and Kraken are the top 3 exchanges for volume these days, right? And it's like, okay, Kraken is what? UK regulated, FCA regulated, Binance is totally unregulated, and Huobi is pretty much unregulated too. So if like we all have that counterparty risk exposure, even though we don't trade on those exchanges, if one of those exchanges go down, the whole ecosystem takes another hit. And you know, you don't even have to have money on an exchange now, but if an exchange goes down, the whole market tumbles, right? So that's.
But you can still mitigate those risks.
You can still mitigate those risks, yes, of course.
To a certain extent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think also risks that we have not talked about, and especially Christoph is probably very familiar with, are the risks, you know, basically embedded into the DeFi protocols, right? Especially the kind of smart contract risks that are still out there, you know, especially for some of the newest ones who've just, you know, copy-pasted PancakeSwap and Uniswap and then made their own version of it. There are still vulnerabilities out there. And then I think last but not least, also in DeFi space, regulation is still a big topic, and regulatory risk, right? I mean, we've been trying to set up a DeFi solution in an AML KYC compliant manner for a while now. We are a whitelister at Aave Arc. For those of you who are not familiar with Aave Arc, it's basically the same protocol as Aave, but only for AML KYC whitelisted counterparties. And we still have not received a green light from the regulator due to the simple reason that, you know, implementing the travel rule in a DeFi compliant manner is just very difficult, and the regulator needs to wrap his head around that your counterparty is essentially the smart contract and not, you know, directly Ryan, who's an AML KYC counterpart. You know, and that's a completely novel concept, I would say, and the regulator usually doesn't want to be the first one worldwide to admit that. So yeah, I think it's still a little bit down the road, but I think Christoph mentioned a very interesting point. I think also what's currently happening in DeFi right now is a little bit of a sandbox environment, right? I think there is much more, there are many more applications coming out of that are not, you know, purely restricted to the crypto space, right? There's no reason why AMM market making, so automated market making and yield farming, etc., should stop at crypto, right? It could also be the model how, you know, regulated exchanges, Euronext, C6 and the likes, operate in one way or another in the future, right? So I think there's massive potential out there, but it's just a learning curve, and the regulator has to kind of play a bit more of an active role until we're there.
Totally agreed. And yeah, please.
Yes, I also fully agree with with my colleagues. Actually, when I started my research, it turned out that the forest is even darker than it looks from outside. Because a lot of protocols are claiming to be DeFi, but they are not really DeFi, they are CeFi. There is a new term like a proof of reserves in CeFi that it's not always related to a traditional financial audit that we think in traditional finance. A lot of DeFi protocols, let's say, describe what they are doing in super technical language, like some stablecoins might not be stable coins. There are just like websites claiming they are stable coins. So you really need to have a strong, IT talents to do that due diligence in your company. Like Terra Luna was a good example because in a way it was something like a transparent Ponzi scheme. I mean, if somebody read the white paper and their technical documentation, you could understand that it's something like a bank that is using its own equities as a collateral. So it can function long term, but a lot of people were assuming it's a stable coin, so it must be solid. And unfortunately, there are a lot of such cases in DeFi. Then please be very careful. Typically, don't trust websites, and do your due diligence.
Or Twitter.
Yeah.
Oh yes,
yeah,
also.
And I think one more point. It's not only necessarily protocols that are kind of flawed, because even for Aave, which is battle tested, one of the biggest protocol out there, been around for a while, billions and billions traded over that one. But I'm not sure if any of you is familiar with this Avram Eisenberg character. It's basically one guy who always describes on Twitter his strategy or how he's going to exploit the functionalities of the protocol to his benefits. And he obviously does that in pools that are not super liquid and on coins that are not super liquid and easier to manipulate. But it's also important to understand that even if the protocol by itself is safe, there are still a lot of risks out there when it comes to pull rocks, liquidity, etc., etc. So it's really important that you do your homework.
Maybe I add something on the positive side, but there are also a lot of arbitrage opportunities because it's so complex. It's difficult for many players to easily identify them. And if you know which protocols are solid, which tokens are solid, which blockchains are solid, then you can really make that arbitrary returns.
Totally agreed. And yeah, maybe a follow-up question to all of you. So what do you see as the biggest risks for crypto as a whole and for DeFi right now or in the future? Maybe Ron, you want to go first?
I would say just bad actors, black swan events. I don't think we're out of the woods yet. Like I said, one person in South Korea could bring down a good chunk of the market, or in any territory or any jurisdiction. I think this is still the biggest issue because of the lack of regulation, basically. So I'm still on the lookout for stuff like this on a daily basis. Obviously, we're looking at what the SEC is going to do, how the Americans are going to, try to make this a legitimate ecosystem in their part of the world. What's going to happen to Coinbase? Are they going to have to leave the United States? All of these things, you told me that actually. But all of these things are coming out, but I'm still very much worried about, single bad actors breaking things.
Yeah, very valid point. Greg?
Yeah, no, I would completely agree with that assessment. I think, and also what Christoph mentioned, that there's this bit mixing of terms, especially to kind of obscure what's really going on, especially with DeFi, etc. I think DeFi was the crack in the market in 2022. Sorry, CeFi was the crack in the market, and I think most of the rotten apples are washed out by now. I think the ones that survived are probably the more serious guys in the space. I don't think that the big black swan event is in CeFi. I think some of the exchanges are likely or are more likely to be kind of the catalyst for the next crisis, and yeah, I think that's probably the biggest risk, exchange risk overall.
So,
Chris?
I agree with my colleagues in general. There are definitely bad actors, and I would argue whether these are DeFi protocols. I would say there are a lot of CeFi components that pretend to be the DeFi, and they are actually the most dangerous, and yeah, they can do most bad things to the ecosystem. Although there are also some political tensions, discussions about CBDCs, which when implemented in a good way, they can really accelerate the adoption by the retail customers, but they can also be a source of some form of censorship. Yeah, we're having some political tensions between superpowers, and yeah, the cryptos, DBCs is also playing a role there. So we are definitely living in the interesting times.
I'd just like to add one thing to Gregory's too, is I think the stablecoin risk is the exchange risk and the stablecoin risk. Because there are people, clients would ask me all the time, what are my biggest concerns for 2023? And it's stablecoin risk and exchange risk. Because if we do have a major stablecoin somehow go from 99.999 to 56 in an afternoon, it rocks the entire security and trust in the ecosystem. And for asset managers like me that are working on a pretty short asset allocation these days because of the kind of market we're in, we try to be market neutral quite often over the course of a 30-day trading cycle. And if we're market neutral, we're in stablecoin, and then it's like, well, which stablecoin? So in some ways, asset managers that are actively managing long and short funds like we are, we end a lot of days market neutral, and stablecoin risk is perhaps our biggest risk apart from the exchange that we're actually hosting the stablecoin on. So those are some of my biggest concerns. And those are now concerns that our clients ask all the time. Like in 2020, 2021, 2022, it was all about returns. Now it's custody.
Yeah, maybe adding to the stablecoin, we all heard that the Fed is coming out with their own version of a digital dollar called Fed Now. What's your guys' stance on that? And will that help, or will that be the end of the other stablecoins out there?
I lived in China for 18 years, and I'm terrified of government CBDCs and stuff like this. I'm hugely concerned about privacy issues. Because obviously all of these dollars that are allocated and spent can be tracked back to the people that are buying and spending them. And obviously credit cards and do that to these days, but I guess it's not in a government database being actively managed by the government on a daily basis. So I feel like that's terrifying.
I would agree.
Yeah.
No,
Anything
I
else?
mean,
Yeah.
Definitely agree from a privacy standpoint. It's an absolute 1984 horror scenario. But I think from a settlement perspective, purely settlement, I think it could solve some issues, right? Because I mean, fiat money is still quite cumbersome from a lot of perspective, right? You need to be, especially US dollar, right? You need to be FedWire member, direct clearer. You always have US dollar correspondence bank in the background. You have T+2 settlement for spot. So it's definitely not an ideal system, definitely worthwhile, to bring some of the efficiency from the blockchain or from a private blockchain solution to that market. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, if that is the only alternative, and governments are going down the route of prohibiting any cash transaction, having full overview of over what you're doing with your money, that's absolutely horrifying.
Yeah, like what if too much of your monthly allocation is spent on single malt whiskey?
Yeah, exactly.
And then all of a sudden, if there's another COVID, you're not going to get a government handout because your business just failed because apparently you're drinking too much, and all of that information is now completely available to other people other than MasterCard or Visa.
But I think it's a little more complex. I think. I mean,
Yes, of course.
I agree. When you implement in such naive way, you create so-called programmable money, it will be very dangerous. Because then even a government will be able to press a button and delete the money from your wallet. But there were statements from SNB and also other central banks that actually they are not going yet to go that path and implement stablecoin CBDCs the way that it's preserving privacy, and technically it's possible. And here I also see a big benefits for the customers of the retail banks. Because I mean, recently in Switzerland, we had the issue with Credit Suisse, that if it wouldn't be rescued by the SNB, then simply plenty of people would lost their savings, and the whole financial market would be affected. And with CDBCs, you might think that it will be as if everybody of us is having a bank account at SNB. And then, if everybody can have bank account at SNB, we no longer need retail banks. You will only need investment banks, private banks, but no retail banks.
Because we're going to hand that over to the government.
SNB, I mean, you will have bank account at the Swiss National Bank.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
More government.
Yeah, very interesting discussion. And I think at this point in time, we can also open up to the audience. I'm sure you guys have some questions. Now is the time to ask our experts here.
Experts. We're just trying to get through the day.
One question I have. Hello? Oh, yeah. One question I had, maybe specifically to Christoph, is how do you see hacking risk developing in the future? I mean, already this year with Sentient, Euler, we've seen probably like almost close to 800 million in hacks, and it hasn't even been like 4 months. How do you see this developing in the future in the world of DeFi? Do you think it will ever go away, or do you think this is going to be a risk that is just permanently going to be there?
I believe that it's going to be a permanent risk, because I'm not sure if you thought about, but also banks are being robbed. Like when you watch some westerns, I mean, I'm not sure if you ever thought why robbers are always robbing banks, not saloons or some other institutions, because simply there is most money, in a bank. So when there will be more money, in DeFi, it will be more attractive for hackers. But when we look at the distribution, which protocols, which type of the protocols are being hacked, it's not even. Like bridges are the most common. And also, when we work with the DeFi protocols that were audited, that went through the IT audits, I mean, they are 4 times less likely actually to be hacked. So I would say that due diligence is becoming even more and more important.
Thank you.
But the thing that worries me about this is how many people who invest in these DeFi projects can do proper due diligence, or whether they just follow someone on Twitter that says they're going to get 17% annual return on anything they lock up for 365 days. Like this stuff's terrifying.
That's why they need managers like you.
No,
to do it.
I would never invest my
7
clients in
days.
stuff like that, though. That's the problem. Like, it's because it's terrifying because these things get hacked all the time, and no one reads anything. And even me in the ecosystem, listening to half the stuff you talk about, I wouldn't be able to make a judgment case on whether something was a good place to put client capital into.
Yeah, I think from you can't replace the traditional gatekeepers overnight, right? I mean, you still have a role for an auditor that does the audit on the smart contract, right? You still need all those guys, right? And that's essentially what my message is. You really need to do your homework, and you cannot simply expect DeFi to be the answer to your problems.
Well, okay, so look at Switzerland, right? So Switzerland has a really nice ecosystem. Cryptocurrency, digital assets is considered a sophisticated investment product in Switzerland. So you're only allowed to deal with sophisticated investors, investable assets of $500,000 to $1 million outside their main property that they own, right? Who's doing that when someone invests in a DeFi project? No one. People are just throwing money into these things without ever knowing what they're doing. But here we have an ecosystem, we have rules we have to play by, we have KYC, AML compliance. The clients have to have money that they can lose, but also have money that they know that they can invest in. But there's so many platforms out there, so many yield farming platforms where there's no checks or balances on anything, and you're asking the clients who probably are not sophisticated investors to somehow do KYC or to do some compliance on the platform, or what protocols they're using to keep it safe from hackers. Like, I wouldn't even know where to begin. I'm not even I don't understand half of how that works.
But with that, I agree. I mean, people that are treating a crypto like a casino, and especially DeFi, yeah, they will lose. Because if you do not know where the yield is coming from, you are the yield. It's very simple. But my message is that actually DeFi is part of the science. Okay, there is some complex computer science, there is some complex mathematics, but it's nothing. I mean, it can be grasped, yes, it can be understood. And there are some asset managers that are already doing it quite well, and they're providing like a nice returns, being those market makers. And also when you think about the tokenization that is coming, and there are trends that in the future it will be 10% of the GDP, then I mean, those guys will get familiar with how that financial system of blockchain is working. Yeah, they will be future winners, because money, will be going that direction. And maybe on I don't like ideological discussion, because with a DeFi and TradFi, it's always a question: who do we trust more? Do we trust more the government that is going to tell us, okay, you are allowed to, go to this bank, not to go to this bank, or when you drive, you need to fasten your seatbelt, or we want to make your own decisions? And actually, blockchain and DeFi is designed that way that there is a full transparency. Like, if you want to do your due diligence, you can do that because it's technically possible. Like, when you want to do your own audit, at UBS, you can't do that. You can't go and check what's in the treasury of UBS or how their IT systems are working. Nobody will show you the source code they are having. And in DeFi, it's public. You know constantly what's the treasury of every protocol. You have access to the source code, so you can do the due diligence. It's more a question, some people who are libertarians, they really love that. Yeah, others that more wait for the government to tell them what to do, they don't like it, they are scared.
Valid points. Thanks for sharing. Any other questions? Yeah?
Hi. First, thank you for the discussion. Very interesting. My question was about stablecoins. All the ones you mentioned are centralized stablecoins. What about decentralized ones that could be more resistant to single point of failures? I'm thinking, for example, about the one from Frax, or if you don't like these kind of ones, the one from Liquidity, LUSD, backed only by Ethereum, Ether. I mean, these kind of ones would allow to mitigate some of the risk that you mentioned before, right? So there's the exchange risk, and then the stablecoin risk, the centralized risk would be mitigated in that way. Do you consider these kind of stablecoins, or are there, like, for example, too small market cap for you to go into them?
I mean, at the stage, they're probably too small market cap for me, but also, I mean, in the crypto space, longevity and time in the market is where a lot of trust is built, right? So there's some exchanges that that you can't even get those stable coins on. And some of the exchanges we work with don't have them. And I'm terrified of any new stable coins that come out. And anytime someone says algorithmic stable coin, I have a small panic attack. So it's just, you know, everyone's going to come out with new stable coins. Are they audited? Are they backed by real assets? Are they not? Are they backed by other cryptocurrency, which is hugely volatile? Like, I don't know where to begin with that. So, you know, we're sticking with the more traditional ones and just, in a lot of ways, praying that one of them doesn't have a terrible audit and we find out that they're, you know, if they've completely faked all their documentation and their value behind every digital dollar in the market is nothing, which means it's, you know, built on trust, which doesn't get us very far. So it's a huge issue. I think it's one of the biggest issues we have in the ecosystem these days is the trust and the audit behind the stable coins.
Here, actually, maybe I say something disturbing for you.
Oh, please, please.
Stable coins are an example of synthetic assets. They are a little similar to derivatives products in a traditional finance. And there are more types of such tokens that people are using on a daily basis, and they are simply not aware that they are synthetic. They are thinking they are buying like a real tangible thing, whereas they having just a synthetic or derivative on something else. It can be like a wrapped Solana, wrapped Ethereum, or liquid staking tokens, yeah, and also stable coins. And of course, okay, maybe not of course, but 99% of those protocols, they are not informing anywhere. They are synthetics or derivatives. Yeah, they are claiming that, yeah, you are having a real Bitcoin, whereas you have some, you know, synthetic product that is, or token, yeah, backed by Bitcoin. But I believe it's going to change. Yeah, there is a lot of research at the academia that is bringing that classification, transparency. Bank for International Settlement is working on that. So we are in the early stage, but I mean it's coming. Yeah, and once there is more research, more transparency, I mean, such extreme cases disappear.
Yeah, hopefully.
I thank you for the discussion. If I may use an analogy between CeFi and DeFi, in CeFi with high yield bonds, the word discovered default risk, and the answer to that was credit default swap to hedge yourself, so buy and sell protection. If you move to DeFi, a hack on a DeFi protocol or a structural problem is a kind of default with a very low recovery risk. So my question is, do you see the emergence of CDS equivalent or insurance schemes in DeFi to buy protection if something happened to a protocol? Some sort of insurance you might be buying to protect yourself against, I would say, a non-systematic or unforeseen capital loss risk.
That'd be interesting.
There are already insurances on chain, right? And also, I mean, I've had clients who actually dealt with Terra Luna Anchor protocol, and they were insured for some of those assets, right? And it was a bit of a hassle operationally to get that money back, but they did. So, and the good thing is, everything is, you know, transparent. You know how much reserve assets are there. I think with there we are back at the same conversation. If you know, are basically hedging yourself with a traditional counterparty in a CDS contract, and you're facing counterparty risk, and that's why you have collateral posting and all of that. And the beauty about the DeFi or on-chain insurance is that you can see exactly how many reserves they have. You can see that it's over-collateralized and all of that, right?
So you had clients that were insuring against UST Luna ownership.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and there were also some cases on Binance. I don't remember which coin, but also one coin was hacked, and then simply insurance covered all of the losses. So at the end of the day, nothing happened for the end users. So it's coming.
Yeah.
Any more questions from the audience? Yeah, one more.
Also coming back to the stablecoin issue, isn't that a huge opportunity, business case for the financial center Switzerland, basically? Is there a regulation against it? Like Swiss franc tokenized by some super audited trust somewhere located in Switzerland to facilitate that. For example, like the idea of Facebook that was kind of rolled back as a basket, multi-currency basket, something like that. I mean, I think they were thinking about Zug or something as a location. I mean, could be recreated by some other foundation to make it independent, super audited, and create some Swiss trustworthiness.
I was going to be our project next quarter. Yeah. I like as a foreigner living in Switzerland, so I've come from Canada through China and now here into Switzerland. So I can tell you, like, running an asset management company that's regulated in Switzerland is not that difficult because people trust Switzerland and people trust the ecosystem, the regulation, and everything like that. So I think having a Swiss-based stablecoin that's, fully audited and trustworthy could be a really good step forward. But it's going to take a while, I guess, maybe after this whole Credit Suisse thing, because I've had clients start pulling redemptions on my capital under management because they think like Switzerland's no longer safe all of a sudden. So once maybe this all blows over, I think that would be an amazing project, because I think people around the world do trust the Swiss ecosystem. So that could be a huge opportunity if it could come to fruition.
I think just one small caveat. I mean, the crypto market is still dollar denominated, right? That makes it a little bit harder, to get like the very big business case out of it. Right? So all the exchange, I mean, everybody's trading BTC dollar and then the crosses. I mean, this is just a fraction of the volume, right?
And all the derivative products are basically USDT for the most part. So if you're trading derivatives in BTC or ETH, that's all USDT, not even USDC. So if you'd have to get people to buy into the Swiss franc, which might be really challenging.
And also the negative interest rates played a very big role in the lack of the Swiss stablecoin. Like in Bitcoin Swiss, they issued one, and simply not to keep that money in a bank and pay negative interest rates, they were keeping, I think, the Swiss franc really in a physical safe to minimize it. And because the negative interest rates were so long, then we didn't have Swiss stable coins. But now, once they are up again, I think there are already like 4 or 5 practically every month. I hear about a new Swiss stable coin. Because I mean, the stable coins typically they make money. They should. Every Swiss stable coin should keep some Swiss francs in the bank, and this is how they. So the higher the interest rates, the more such stable coins will have.
I mean, one of the things that scared me like a month ago was the fact that USDC had capital with Silicon Valley Bank or Signature Bank. Signature Bank.
Valley. No, Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley Bank. They had $3 billion trapped in Silicon, and then the stablecoin dropped to what, 92 or 93 in a day.
Even lower.
So here's a stablecoin in the digital asset ecosystem that is audited and backed by fiat assets, but the fiat assets were in Silicon Valley Bank, and Silicon Valley Bank became illiquid, and those assets were trapped, and then the stablecoin went down 7 cents in an afternoon. Like, that's the kind of risk I'm talking about on it, and that's a traditional financial risk in a digital ecosystem. And I think the more these two ecosystems become tangled, we're going to get more money coming in because it'll make people feel safer too. But then, of course, digital assets are now at risk to traditional financial markets and actors as well. And when I talk about bad actors in crypto, I'm also afraid of bad actors in the traditional financial markets. Like, when's the next Lehman's moment? Did we just see it? 3 banks went pretty much insolvent in 1 week in the United States. Small banks, sure, but when's the next one? And is that going to affect the digital asset ecosystem because some digital asset firm has fiat assets on their books with one of these banks that goes bankrupt? It's the cross entanglement is also quite scary because the traditional financial ecosystem isn't safe either. I mean, if I was an asset manager only dealing with traditional financial assets, I also wouldn't sleep. So
and I think it goes the other way around, right? I mean, stable coins or physically backed stable coins, especially USDT, have become so big that, and some of these reserves at least they are held in in short-term money market instruments, right? So if they are facing a bank run essentially and have to liquidate, 30, 40 billion in short-term money market instrument, that can have huge repercussions on the traditional financial system. This is also why the Fed and all the regulators are looking very closely at these stablecoins, and they should, right?
Yeah.
Maybe one comment on USDC, because I look at that more like a researcher, and actually the case showed that the model is really working, and that there must be equilibrium on the market, because there were 3 billions locked in the Silicon Valley Bank, and they were representing 10% of the reserves. And because 10% of the reserves were at risk, the value dropped exactly by 10%, from $1 to 0.9. And then once there was more and more certain that the government is going to back those reserves, then the peg immediately came back to $1. So there is really mathematics, some equilibrium model behind that. It's not a lottery that something is losing value, and the size of that loss is also coming from the models.
Which is great, but if I'm managing a client and I have him in USDC at the end of a day, and I didn't hang out drinking with all the Silicon Valley Bank executives over the last 4 weeks knowing that they're about to tank their company, their bank, then I would have no idea. And then I would wake up one morning and all of a sudden my client would have an AUM at -10 just because I picked the wrong stable coin.
Yes, and this is actually example how traditional finance is not working.
Yeah.
Because I think it was hailed by Forbes like the best bank, United States. It passed the audit, I think, by EY with a flying colors.
Ernest
So
Young.
it's really showing that actually the regulations are not always protecting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, all valid points. Thanks for sharing, and thanks for the honesty, the brutal honesty. I mean, it needs to be addressed. And to close this, I would ask every one of you is there any tips or what do you want everybody to take away from this tonight? Or, yeah, please.
I'll let you go first.
Oh, okay. No surprise.
Yeah.
I think I've already mentioned it. I think do your homework if you want to get into digital assets, into DeFi specifically. Do your homework not only with regards to the custody solution, whether or not you want to go into self-custody or a non-custodial solution, but also do your homework in all the risks entailed in the protocol, and make sure if you don't understand that you rely on trusted third party that make it understandable to you.
Yeah, for me, it's just be careful. It is really still the Wild West. And as much as we think things are regulated in Switzerland, what's going on here is not the majority of the digital ecosystem, digital asset ecosystem that exists in the world. And there's a lot of bad actors that can take things down. And there's a lot of interconnectedness that we don't understand, that is not in the light of day, that will only come out when things go bad. And we have to be constantly ready for that. So if you want to trade on your own, you need to be well informed, or find a counterparty that you trust, that you think can help you navigate through these murky waters. But either way, be ready for a roller coaster.
I would say that first of all, go and try by yourself. Maybe don't put there 10,000 or hundreds of thousands, but I mean just create a wallet, put there 100 Swiss francs, and play by yourself. Do some yield farming, exchange something on a Uniswap, just pay a little, and then I mean if you like it, then think about going professional, go to a professional, think about the custody, do analysis of the risk. But doing just a trading in DeFi is really, really simple. So just go and try. But here I agree, risks are big, so try with the small amount at the beginning.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And we went a little over time. It was a full hour that we talked about the topic, but also a good sign, not too many people left. Almost no one, actually. So
There's still wine.
Then there's wine, exactly. So we're here, another 1.5 hours at least. We have food, we have wine, so please enjoy yourselves and keep the discussion going. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
That was fun.